I remember the way sunlight fell across our living room that morning, warm and gentle like any other day. Mom stood near the window, sipping her tea, the same way she always did. I wasn't trying to stare at her, I was just looking, just watching her like any daughter might when lost in thought. But something in her eyes, something subtle, something unfamiliar flickered for a split second. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was something else. Something I couldn't name at the time. And that's when everything quietly started to shift. We were a close-knit family, or at least I thought we were. My dad worked long hours, but he always came home to us. Mom kept things together, our meals, our home, our lives. To the outside world, we were just another ordinary American family living in the suburbs, doing our best. But underneath the routine, cracks had started to form. I just hadn't noticed them yet. That day, when I caught that strange look in her eyes, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It lingered in the back of my mind like a whisper I couldn't quite hear. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that maybe she was just tired or worried. Moms carry a lot, don't they? Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. As the days passed, small things started to feel off. She was on her phone more often but quickly hid the screen when I came near. She seemed distracted, almost lost in her thoughts, even when we were talking. I asked her a few times if everything was okay, and she always smiled and said yes, but her eyes never matched her words. One evening, Dad called to say he'd be working late again. I was in the kitchen helping Mom prepare dinner when I noticed her glance at the clock, not in frustration, not in boredom, but with a strange kind of anticipation. That look came back, the one I'd seen before. Except this time, it wasn't just a flicker. It stayed longer. And in that moment, I felt something shift in the air between us. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, stirring the pot of soup, pretending everything was normal. But my heart felt heavy. I didn't know what I was looking for, or what I was afraid of. I only knew something wasn't right. And I was no longer sure if I truly knew the woman I had called Mom all my life. What I didn't know was that the truth was already unfolding around me, in messages sent behind closed doors, in meetings that were never mentioned, and in choices that would break more than just trust. That one moment, that one look in her eyes, had opened a door I never meant to walk through. But once it opened, there was no going back. And what I found on the other side. I'll never forget it. A few days later, while Mom was out running errands, I sat in the living room flipping through channels, trying to distract myself. But my thoughts kept drifting back to her. That look. That distant energy. I didn't want to believe something was wrong, but my gut wouldn't let it go. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was just being dramatic. Still, something in me kept whispering that I should pay closer attention. It started with small things. Her perfume smelled different one evening, not the usual soft floral scent she wore every day, but something stronger, newer, like she was dressing up for someone, not something. She had also started going out more often. First it was short grocery trips, then suddenly she was meeting an old friend from her college days. She brushed it off so casually that I didn't know how to question it without sounding suspicious. But inside, I felt uneasy. Who was this friend? Why now? Dad was still busy with work. He trusted her completely. He had no reason not to. They'd been married for nearly 20 years, and until recently, nothing ever felt unstable between them. But now, I saw things differently. I noticed how Mom didn't wait for his calls anymore. How she smiled to herself sometimes when no one was looking. I couldn't explain it, but that smile wasn't meant for us. One evening, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while stepping out to the backyard. I didn't plan to look. But it buzzed. Once, then again. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize, no contact photo, just an initial. My chest tightened. I didn't open the message. I just stared at the screen, unsure of what I'd do if I saw what was inside. The moment passed, and I heard her footsteps returning. I quickly walked away like nothing happened, but my mind was spinning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering if I should talk to her or maybe even to Dad. But I didn't want to start something that couldn't be undone. What if I was wrong? What if it was all in my head? Still, the signs were adding up, and my heart was already halfway to broken. I didn't know how much more I could ignore. I just knew I was standing on the edge of something, and once I stepped forward, everything would change. A few days later, I came home from school earlier than usual. The house was quiet, too quiet. Mom's car was in the driveway, so I figured she was inside. I called out, but there was no answer. I dropped my bag and walked toward her room, and just as I was about to knock, I heard faint laughter. Her door was slightly open, and I could see her sitting on the edge of her bed, phone pressed to her ear, her voice soft in a way I hadn't heard before. She didn't know I was there. I didn't catch every word, but I heard her say, "I miss you too." My heart dropped. I backed away before she saw me, pretending I'd just arrived when she eventually came out. From that moment on, things felt different between us. Not because she knew what I'd heard, but because now I was keeping a secret too. I was watching everything closely. I noticed how she always seemed to light up when her phone buzzed. How she was always checking the clock. Even the meals felt different, like she was there in body, but not fully present. Meanwhile, Dad stayed the same. Still busy, still tired, still trusting. He never questioned anything. I couldn't bring myself to say anything to him. I didn't know how to hurt him with something I wasn't even sure of yet. But it felt like betrayal was hanging in the air, and I was the only one breathing it in. I started thinking back to the times we used to be close as a family, game nights, long drives, those lazy Sunday mornings. Had all of that been real? Or had something been wrong for a long time and I just never noticed? One night, while I was up late studying, I heard the front door quietly unlock. I looked at the clock, 11:46 p.m. Mom had told me earlier she was going to bed early. I peeked out the window and saw her slipping inside with her shoes in her hand, tiptoeing across the floor. She didn't see me watching from the dark hallway. My throat tightened. I didn't know where she had been, but I knew it wasn't anywhere she wanted anyone to know. That was the night I realized this wasn't just a phase or a misunderstanding. Something real was happening. Something secret. And whatever it was pulling our family apart, one quiet moment at a time. After that night, everything around me started to feel like a ticking clock. I couldn't focus at school, couldn't enjoy time with my friends, and every time my mom smiled at me, it felt like a lie. I wanted to confront her, but how do you look your own mother in the eye and ask if she's hiding something? I kept waiting for her to give me a reason, any reason, to believe I was wrong. But she didn't. If anything, her secrets grew deeper, and I could feel the gap between us widening. A week later, Dad announced he was going on a short work trip. Just 2 nights. Nothing unusual. He kissed Mom on the cheek, completely unaware that something might be off. She smiled at him like she always did, but the moment he left, I saw her entire expression shift, like she was waiting for that door to close. That evening, she dressed up. Not like for a family dinner. She curled her hair, sprayed perfume, the same unfamiliar one, and stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. I asked where she was going, trying to sound casual. She just said she was meeting a friend for dinner, an old neighbor visiting town. No hesitation in her voice. No guilt. And then she left. I couldn't sit still. My mind was spinning. I kept thinking about everything I'd seen, everything I'd overheard, and how quiet my dad's trust had always been. That's when I made the choice I'd been avoiding. I followed her. I waited a few minutes after she drove off and then grabbed my jacket and my keys. I had no real plan, just this deep feeling that I needed to know the truth with my own eyes. I stayed a few cars behind, heart pounding the whole time. I didn't even realize how tightly I was gripping the steering wheel. She didn't go to a restaurant. She pulled into a quiet neighborhood, parked near a house I didn't recognize, and stepped out quickly. Moments later, a man came out the front door. He smiled when he saw her. She hugged him. Too close. Too long. I froze. I didn't move, didn't blink. My whole world shifted in that one moment. Everything I'd feared, all the suspicions I tried to push away, now stood in front of me like a scene I was never meant to witness. And the worst part? She looked happy. I sat frozen in the car, hands shaking, watching my mother wrap her arms around a man I had never seen before. It wasn't just a friendly hug, it was something else. Something personal. Her smile, the way she tilted her head, how she touched his arm like it was all so familiar, it all made sense now. The late nights, the distant looks, the secret texts. But just as I was trying to make sense of it all, something happened that I never expected. The man glanced around cautiously and led her inside. I stayed parked, staring at the door they disappeared through, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to run. Another part wanted to knock on that door and scream. But then, just as I was caught between fight and flight, I saw movement in my rearview mirror. A car pulled up behind me slowly and stopped. My heart skipped. The driver didn't get out, just sat there with the headlights off. I started to panic. I wasn't sure if they were connected to Mom or if I had parked in the wrong place, but something didn't feel right. I lowered my head, trying not to be seen. Minutes passed. The car didn't move. Then I noticed the plate, it looked oddly familiar. I squinted through the darkness and suddenly realized why. It was my dad's car. I couldn't breathe for a second. I thought he was out of town. He had just left that morning. My stomach twisted. What was he doing here? Had he followed her too? Was he suspicious all along and just pretending to be clueless? My heart raced with 100 questions. I ducked down as far as I could, terrified he'd see me too. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't supposed to be here. And then the front door opened again. My mom stepped outside briefly. She waved to someone inside the house, blew a kiss, and disappeared back in. Dad never got out of his car. He just sat there, silently watching the same way I was. For a moment, I felt like we were both strangers to the same woman. Was he waiting for proof? Was he here to confront her? Or was he simply paralyzed, like me, by the weight of what he was seeing? The man she had gone inside with wasn't just anyone. The more I stared, the more something about him looked familiar, like I'd seen him before in old photos tucked away in boxes we never opened. Suddenly, it hit me. He wasn't just some stranger. He was someone from her past. Maybe someone she loved before Dad. Maybe someone she never truly let go of. That realization sent chills down my spine. This wasn't just an affair, it was something deeper. Something older. And if Dad had recognized him too, this was no longer a secret affair. This was history repeating itself right in front of us. And it was about to shatter everything we thought we knew. I didn't know how long I had been holding my breath until I saw my dad's car door slowly open. He stepped out quietly, no rush in his movements, as if he had already played this moment over in his head 1,000 times. I stayed hidden, crouched low in my seat, heart pounding so loudly I was sure someone could hear it. My dad walked toward the house, not with anger, but with the kind of calm that comes when the truth is no longer avoidable. I watched him ring the bell, and within seconds, the door opened. My mom appeared, startled. I could see her lips part, unsure whether to speak or step back. Behind her, the man she had embraced stood frozen. The silence between all three of them was so heavy, even from a distance, I could feel it pressing against my chest. My dad didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just looked at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. Then he said something I couldn't hear, and my mom's face dropped. She turned pale, her expression breaking into something raw of fear, guilt, maybe even regret. The man stepped forward, trying to explain, but my dad held up a hand. One small gesture, but it said everything. He had seen enough. He didn't need answers anymore. He just needed space. He turned and walked away, not back to his car, but down the street, alone. That image of him, walking away from the woman he'd trusted for decades, will never leave me. I thought that was the end. I thought I'd seen the worst. But just as I was about to start my car, I noticed something strange. The man inside the house walked back into the hallway and picked up a photo frame from a nearby shelf. He stared at it with a strange intensity before placing it inside a drawer. Curiosity pulled me closer. I carefully stepped out of the car and crept toward the side of the house, where the blinds were only half closed. What I saw inside made my blood run cold. There were pictures, dozens of them. Some old, some recent. And not just of my mom. Some were of me. Of my school. Of my friends. There were notes too. Scribbled names. Dates. It wasn't just a love affair. This was something else, something far more disturbing. I wasn't just looking at my mother's betrayal anymore. I was staring into a part of her life that she had kept buried. And somehow, I was part of it. I backed away quickly, heart pounding. I didn't know who this man really was or what my mom had gotten herself involved in. But I knew this wasn't over. The truth wasn't just about broken vows anymore. It was about secrets that could ruin more than a marriage. Secrets that might have been meant to stay hidden forever. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that drawer filled with photos, those names scribbled on scraps of paper, and that man, standing in our lives like he had always belonged there. I didn't know how deep it all went, but one thing was clear now: this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about secrets that had lived quietly inside my mother for years. And suddenly, everything I thought I understood about her, about our family, felt shaken. The next morning, she returned home. Her eyes were red, and she looked older somehow, like the weight of everything had finally landed on her shoulders. I was sitting at the kitchen table, and for the first time in days, she didn't pretend. She sat across from me and stared into her coffee like she was searching for a way to begin. She told me everything. The man was someone from her past. Not just a fling or a lost love, but someone she had a serious relationship with before she met Dad. She never told anyone because her parents had disapproved back then. They forced her to walk away. Years later, through social media, he found her again. At first, it was innocent, catching up, remembering old days. But things changed. She felt seen in ways she hadn't in a long time. She admitted she made a mistake. A terrible one. I asked her about the photos. That part she didn't expect me to know. Her face went pale. She said he had asked for pictures, of her, of me, of our lives. She thought it was strange too, but every time she questioned it, he'd twist the conversation or make her feel guilty. She realized too late that he wasn't just reaching for the past, he was controlling it. Manipulating it. And maybe even watching us in ways we never realized. That was the last time she spoke to him. After what happened that night, after seeing Dad at the door, she knew she had destroyed the trust they built together. She promised to come clean. And she did. Dad came back after 2 days. He didn't say much at first, but when he did, it wasn't anger, it was heartbreak. Years of love, trust, and routine had been shattered. They went to counseling. They took time apart. And honestly, I didn't know if they would make it. But at least the lies were no longer living in the dark. As for me, I saw my mother differently after all of this. Not just as someone who made a mistake, but as someone who had buried parts of herself for so long that when they came back, she didn't know how to handle them. Her betrayal hurt, but what scared me more was how easily silence and secrets can grow in a family without anyone noticing. This story wasn't just about a mother's affair. It was about hidden truths, fragile trust, and the damage secrets can cause, even when you think you're protecting the people you love. Watching my mom that day, something in her eyes had changed. And now, I finally understood why. 58.